Former Massachusetts Governor Mike Dukakis on the phone with us. Thanks for doing this on short notice for us.
Happy to do it.
So you're teaching at Northeastern part of the year. You're at UCLA. Is it during the winters?
Yeah, most of the year in Boston at Northeastern, but difficult though it is, we drag ourselves out of New England in late December. This is not a bad place to spend the winter, and it's an interesting place to teach and be a part of what is a somewhat different political culture from what we have in the Northeast.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the Boston higher education scene. I just finished my MBA at Bentley University, just
Terrific.
near Northeastern, and I don't know if I'm right, that from talking to my friends in California, it's a very different scene educationally as well. Is that right?
Somewhat. Remember, out here in California, 90% of the kids go to public higher education schools, either the University of California, and it's got 11 branches, or the so-called Cal State universities, which are more or less like our state colleges, or a very extensive community college system. And that's not exactly what we have in the Northeast, where you tend to have a greater balance between the private nonprofits, and the public schools, and so in that sense, it's somewhat different. Obviously, for reasons of cost alone, we're going to have more and more Massachusetts kids and New England kids going to public colleges and universities, and it's a major responsibility that we've got to make sure we're dealing with. Out here, as you know, they've got serious financial problems that they just can't seem to resolve. So the public higher education system is under a lot of pressure.
Is there any end in sight to the financial trouble there? I mean,
not David, unless they get rid of the 2/3 vote in Washington, D.C., we're going to have exactly the same dysfunctional problems nationally. I mean, it's just absolutely outrageous that 41 people, in my opinion, can stop 59 from acting, and that's what we now have. It's probably unconstitutional. It certainly isn't in any law. It's just a Senate rule that I think has been perverted badly, and by the way, abused by both sides. With this two-thirds vote for a budget, which is in the state constitution, it's impossible for the state government to operate. I can't imagine being the governor of a place where it took 2/3 to get a budget through.
A lot of questions were sent in to me when I mentioned last week that we'd be speaking with you. Several from some friends who drive the Vermonter Amtrak train. They mentioned you had been on the Amtrak board of directors.
Indeed.
What is your reaction to Barack Obama's funding and interest in funding high-speed rail? We recently heard here in the western part of Massachusetts, we're getting a number of new stations and routes for Amtrak. And within, just anecdotally, Amtrak employees seem to be really happy with what's going on. We know Joe Biden famously would take the train into Washington. What's your thought about what's gone on so far with funding?
Well, I'm thrilled, and I hope most Americans are, because this country desperately needs a first-class national rail passenger system. We don't have it. In the meantime, Europe, Japan, and now China are just going right by us. The Chinese are now building a national high-speed rail passenger system, David, that will connect every provincial capital in the entire country with 225-mile-an-hour trains. This is China, and we're still putzing along at 80 miles an hour, except in the Northeast Corridor.
Why are we so behind?
Why are we so behind? Because we decided after World War II that we were going to pour billions, if not trillions, into highways and airports, and basically walk away from public transportation and from modern high-speed rail. Now, don't ask me who made that decision. I think it was almost a collective one. I mean, you see it out here, as you can imagine, in California, where they build all these freeways, and now they're nothing but moving parking lots, and they basically destroyed what were some very good public transportation systems. Fortunately, in East, we didn't do that, and I guess I had something to do with making sure that we not only were hanging on to what we had, but really starting to invest in it and modernize it. But it was just one of those things where we're all going to drive from our homes to any place we wanted to go. And of course, what we've learned, sadly, is you just can't do that. Not only that, but it's very wasteful from an energy standpoint. It's highly polluting, all the kinds of things that we've discovered. And Barack Obama, quite literally, is the first president we've had. Bill Clinton was pretty good, but Barack Obama and his vice president, who, as you point out, has played a major role in this, are the first president and vice president we've had in my lifetime who are serious about investing in a national rail passenger system worthy of the name. And we better get going on this, David, because if we don't do this, we're going to be in the rearview mirror of a lot of countries around the world. I applaud what the president and the vice president are doing. They have a very strong bipartisan majority for this, by the way. We talk a lot about partisanship these days, but there's a strong bipartisan majority for investing in our national rail passenger system in the Congress. And I'm just tickled to death that we've begun.
Well, speaking of bipartisan consensus, I saw visually during the State of the Union address a bipartisan consensus, everybody standing and clapping for repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Last week, I spoke to Congressman Barney Frank about this, and he says, hey, it's great what's going on. I don't want to belittle it, but a year to discuss repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell. What's your reaction?
Well, I don't know how bipartisan the support is for this, because I don't think I'm in the conservative community. It's got great support, but look, I think it's pretty clear that this is the direction in which we ought to move. I don't know that it ought to take a year to do this. Obviously, the military needs some time. I mean, when Harry Truman issued his famous executive order desegregating the armed forces, and remember, he issued an executive order because he couldn't get desegregated armed forces through the Congress. He gave the military some time to begin getting prepared for it, and I don't have a problem with that as long as we're moving ahead toward a goal, which I think now the administration, to its credit, has really articulated, and that includes the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
This episode of Midweek Politics has been made possible in part by Just Coffee Cooperative, fair trade coffee from around the world roasted daily at justcoffee.coop.